So in this video I'm going to show you very briefly how to get started with the DP reports machine. Once you've downloaded your file and put it on your computer somewhere, you can just go ahead and open it. You'll be greeted with this message talking about macros. Just enable macros. You have to do that each time to be able to save the reports that it generates. Also, you've got this yellow warning at the top. You can just enable content there. It won't really affect what's happening in the sheet. So once it's loads, you've got this kind of front-end page. This is where you would put your student data. So for each class you have, so for example, this might be grade 12 design. You could change the class name to that, and you could copy in or type in your student names. So first name, last name is only for your reference, but it's worth putting in anyway. The student's gender, male or female, just denoted by M or F, and scores for various assessments you have completed so far. You will also need to put in a best fit grade, and these three, it says optional here. You don't need any of these for the system to work. However, we will need to include at least the ATL grade, and the other two, the effort grade is quite a nice one to include as well. Actually, it's not printed anywhere, but it does make the report sound a bit better when as most teachers will mention some form of kind of effort that the students put in through the course of the year so far. So how this works is there's a comment generated here already. I will show you an example, a better example of a better comment from an MYP system, so you can see what this will look like once it's fully up and running. Right now, all I've done is just included really basic sentences in here, which you will have to change in the comment bank, and I'll talk briefly about that as well, to align this to your own report writing style. Your department could do this together so that you've got a good bank of reports ready to go, and then all you as teachers need to do is just put in the data for each student and it will work. So how this basically works is the sheet is split up into a few different the report splits itself up into a few different sentences. I'm going to flick over to this document, which I will send you, and this is the sentence structure. So those were the numbers that we saw, or the assessments that we saw on the previous example. So how this works is the report picks out a few sentences and just joins them all up. Sentence 1 is based on the best fit grade. So basically there is a set of different sentences assigned to a level 5 student, just as an introduction. So for example, Sam is working towards a level 5. You could elaborate a little bit more on that, and I suggest that you do. And there's actually 5 different options for each grade level. That way you can have a different sounding report for 2 students that have both got the same grade. Sentence 2 talks about the comparison between the best fit grade and the target grade. So for example, if you've got a target grade of a 5 and you've given the student a 5, then this is in line with his target level, gets written by the reports machine. Sentence 3 is based on the assigned effort level. Now we don't have an effort level. This isn't printed anywhere, as I mentioned before. So this is just out for, in your opinion, has the student put in low effort, medium effort, or high effort into the subject so far? So in this case, it's medium effort, which is 2. What this actually does as well is it obviously uses your score for effort, but it also looks at these scores, and it also mentions the consistency of these results. So what this has come out as is he has put a reasonable amount of effort into his work. This has led to a reasonable level of consistency among assessed results. If you had very inconsistent results here, such as like a 2, then a 6, then a 3, and then a 7, or something like that, this comment would be different. It would start talking about how the results are inconsistent. and it will also mention effort depending on what you put in there. Now, sentence 4, this talks about, as it's praising the student basically for their highest achievement so far. So it picks out the highest of these assessments and it mentions that one. So in this case, Sam got a 6 for paper 3, which means that that is his highest assessment, and that is what it's saying. So Sam did especially well in paper 3. Sentence 5 is the kind of opposite to that, in which it picks out the lowest one. Now you'll notice here there's 2 lowest ones. What this does is it automatically picks the first. Okay, there is a way of, so it's paper 1, it said Sam, or he should focus on improving his work for paper 1 next time. There is a way of adjusting that in the report machine as well, and I'll show you that briefly. But generally this works pretty well. So it just picks the highest, talks about the highest for the strength, and picks the lowest, talks about the lowest for the weakness or the target. Sentence 6 is the ATL assessment. So all this is you type in either below expectations, approaching expectations, meeting expectations, or exceeding expectations in this form. So just the abbreviated version into this column. So he's met expectations here, and what it said is he has met expectations in terms of the creative thinking ATL skill assessed. And then sentence 7 works exactly like sentence 1 in that it is just solely based on the best fit grade. So the idea is you would write a few different introductions and a few different conclusions for students of certain levels. And I'll show you some examples of this in an MYP system. So going back to this, obviously if we start changing things, so let's give him a 7 here, a 2 here, a 5 there. So these results, you'd probably agree, are fairly inconsistent. Maybe his best fit is a 5 and his target's a 5 and the rest of it, but you should notice in the comment that it's written, he has put a reasonable amount of effort into his work, but unfortunately his assessment results have not been consistent. So it's picked that up and it's mentioned it. Now, these comments become much more elaborate when you actually edit them yourself and improve them and make them linked to what you were actually doing for those assessments. How to do that is in the comment bank. Before I go there, I'm just going to show you how to save. Assuming you have got all your comments sorted, what you would do is simply just enter the data, read this report briefly. If it sounds okay, save. And then this comment jumps into this box. And from this box, you can then just copy and paste out. Notice that you can't copy and paste out of this one. It only lets you copy out of this one. So from this, you could copy into iSAMS, you could copy into a separate Excel sheet, then upload everything all at once. But for the most part, this is where your final comments are saved. And if you save the sheet, close it and reopen it again, that comment will still be there, so you don't have to do these all in one go. I mentioned as well, if you have very consistent results, so for example straight 4s, and probably it would be a best fit of a 4, how does it know which is the highest and which is the lowest to talk about strengths and targets? Well, it doesn't. It just picks the first one as the strength and the second one as the target in this scenario. So what you might want to do is use this adjustments column. So if I want to say that actually I know Sam and I know he had a real strength in paper 3, and that was C, I would type in C here. And these are linked to these letters up there. And maybe I know he could really do with working harder in paper 1, I could put that. So in the comment that's generated here, you'll notice that, where is it? Sam did especially well in paper 3. He should focus on improving his work for paper 1 next time. Okay, obviously, of course, we can change this to exceeding, for example, and then you've got he has exceeded expectations in terms of creative thinking ATL skill assessed. If Sam is a girl, the comments all still work, obviously the he and she changes, and you've got her and so on, or automatically flipped over. You can also change the term, and I'll show you that on the MYP system where there's slightly better comments to use. So in the comment bank, this is kind of, once you've got your head around how this works, you would be going into the comment bank and starting to edit the comments that are used to build the final report. So in this page, there's some brief explanations at the top. If you'd rather read them, you can. This is how to use it and how to write the comments. The first thing you see is the class name, so this just reminds you what class you're writing the comments for. You've got the time period, which in this case I've just left as term, and you've got your ATL skill. You can change this to whatever you like. Okay, just type it in. As I mentioned, so sentence 1 is based on, randomly chosen based on best fit level. So for example, if your best fit level is a 7, the student would get one of these 5 comments at random. I'll show you a filled in version in a minute where you will see how you could use this feature to be able to actually have a lot of variation in your reports. And it goes down to 6, 5, and so on. Right down at the bottom here, this is the target. So if the student is above his target level, it'll say this is above his assigned target level. If he's in line, this is in line with his target level. Below, this is below his original target level. So this is a really simple example of how roughly this system works. Moving on to effort and consistency. These are slightly better comments. So these are basically copied straight out of the MYP version. You can have a read of these and see if they make sense for you. But you'll see, so if it's high effort and high consistency, they get this comment. If it's high effort and medium consistency in results, they get this comment. High effort, low consistency, this comment, and so on. So you've got all the different options. There's the nine different possibilities of combinations to go through. The following ones is the strength and the target. Both of them work in much the same way. You have 3 options for each assessment. So A is paper 1. So you would mention something about paper 1 in this comment. So for example, student did especially well in paper 1. He showed this through, I don't know, advanced critical thinking skills and great research technique. So you might want to elaborate on this sentence, or you should elaborate on this sentence and mention maybe some of the topics that were covered or some of the key skills that the students have shown. Bear in mind that this is for the strength. So this is the best that they did in their assessment so far. So that we are praising the students here and we're suggesting a target here. You might be wondering, why is there 3 different options for the strengths? These aren't random, and these are just linked to whether the student in your class is a high level student. So if they're getting a target, if they're getting a best fit level of maybe a 6 or a 7, if they're a medium student, if it's between a 4 and a 5, or if they're a low student, if their best fit is 3 or below. So the language you use in the strength comments and the target comments might differ slightly, and I'll show you some examples of that in the MYP system and how we use it there. The ATL is dead simple. It's just if you get an EE, you get exceeding expectations in terms of ATL, and so on. Meeting expectations, and you can obviously elaborate a bit as well depending on which ATL skill you're assessing. And sentence 6 works exactly like sentence 1. I haven't got any kind of examples here. I've just literally put conclusion and a number. This doesn't make any sense, so you will need to change these for sure when you start using the system to make it create good comments. Now, you may have noticed as I've been going through, I'll show you some examples here. Though it's written in sort of plain English, there are a few little things like these exclamation points behind words like he here. his, and so on. So these are the kind of gender specific words, if you will. So anytime you have a word like he, his, him, and it works for the capitals at the beginning of the sentence and the lowercase in the middle, you always have to put an exclamation point. That allows you to switch your comment between a male or female comment. Okay, there's a few other things you can switch around. So if you look at this example at the top, this is what you might have as an original comment. So this, you might even have this from a previous comment bank. Adam has been working well in his mathematics unit. So how we would change that to work with this system is simply to change Adam for student exclamation point. Has been working well in his exclamation point recent mathematics unit. So it's quite simple, and once you get used to it, you'll be able to change these fairly quickly, either from previous comments or from new ones you write, but make sure, especially the ones, watch out for the ones in the middle, like his. That is one that always gets overlooked. The comments have to be written for a male student in these boxes. That is just the way it works, and it just reminds you. So the student name should be changed to student exclamation mark, and his, he, him, all of that needs to be changed to the appropriate style with the exclamation mark at the end. Now you do also have term. This allows you to change, if you want to be able to switch quickly, the time frame of the report. So if you want to talk about something that the student has done this year rather than this term or this semester or this quarter, in your comments use this term exclamation mark, and then when you change this time period, it will also change all the mentions of that word in your comments. Hopefully this makes sense. I will show you briefly the MYP version. So this is a system that I actually use with all good quality comments, and you can see they're much longer once they get fully sorted. So here we have Sarah. She's got level 5, level 6, level 3, level 5, and you could sort of, even though these are criteria grades for MYP, you could kind of assume these are like the assessments that you'd be doing in DP. It works in much the same way. So if I read through this, you'll get a sort of idea of how this might sound. So in design class, Sarah has done well this term, and through some good work submitted, she has achieved a level 5 grade overall. This is in line with her target level. Though she has put in a good level of effort into her work, her results have not been consistent across all criteria in the mini speaker project unit. Sarah did particularly well in criterion B, developing ideas, where she displayed promising design and communication skills. Sarah should aim to improve her practical skills in future projects and use a wide range of tools and processes. This will help her improve her scoring for criterion C, creating the solution. So those were the strength and target comments, but as you can see, it makes a lot more sense when you explain that, through doing this, they could improve their score for this. So this is what I mean about padding out the comments a bit, and not just, obviously not using these very basic examples. You'll notice as well, I'm not going to read through the rest, but you'll notice as well, there's the refresh button. If I press that, once the system is kind of fully sorted and you've written in all your comments, you'll notice you actually get loads of different options for the same student with the same data. There's actually 25 different possible reports based on just the different introduction and conclusion each time. So an example of a conclusion would be, overall, Sarah has found some success in her project this term, and I believe she's a very capable design student. With little more detail in her work, she should see a quick improvement. If I just change this to year, you can see it starts mentioning years rather than term here. If I change her to Jack, oops. And don't forget, of course, to change the gender there. This year in design class, Jack's worked well through the criteria, and it starts talking, obviously, about a male student. So this is what the comment bank looks like. you can see you've probably got around a sentence, a reasonably short or medium sentence in each box. Now, what you'll find is you'll very rarely have any students that are ones or twos or maybe even threes. So you don't need to go to town on this and fill in every single box. You could think about where you're going to use this the most, and it is good to have 5 different options because you may find that you actually have a lot of students on the same final level, and it gives a bit of variation between the year groups as well. So once you have written your report, just a quick reminder, you'll want to save them into this space, and then from here you can copy out. Don't forget to save, of course, and please let me know if you have any questions about how this system works, and I hope to create a new video with some better comments, hopefully from someone that can that teaches DP that can pass me on theirs once they're done to share with the rest of you. Thank you very much.